Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
And I almost got caught looking at my phone, Rodney. All the Bama haters are out in full force.
They sure are.
Yeah, more on that in a moment, I promise you. Welcome into Tider Insider TV, as mentioned, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa. Go to visittuscaloosa.com. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. So much to process tonight with the CFP rankings. Good news for the Tide. National Signing Day, the transfer portal opening up here in a few days. But we begin with the game in this state that still, no matter what else is going on, trumps all others, the Iron Bowl. Alabama on Saturday, Rodney, won the 89th edition of the famous game by a final score of 28-14. 5 straight Iron Bowls now. Let me give some numbers, Rodney, before I get your analysis for the Crimson Tide. That's the first time that's happened, of course, since Coach Bryant in the 70s. Jalen Milroe, if this was his last Iron Bowl, what a great one it was. 256 passing yards, 104 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns. Alabama went 12 of 16 on third down. Auburn 4 of 12. That's probably the difference in the game because Alabama had 4 turnovers. It was by far not a perfect game, but the Tide still, I think, showed they were clearly the better team. Really, the only surprise for me watching the game next to you, Rodney, in the press box was that it wasn't a larger margin of victory. Turnovers and, always penalties seem to be a factor with Alabama. Still, though, the Tide defense held the Tigers offense to 6 points in the red zone, even though they had multiple trips down there, particularly in the first half. So 28-14, Jeremy Bernard had a big game, 7 catches for 111 yards. And Tide gets it done, Rod, and kind of opened up the possibility by winning this game for what we're going to talk about a little bit later on with the CFP.
I really thought, Gary, coming into this game, how would Alabama respond to that after that performance at Oklahoma that was really, one of the most uninspiring performances Alabama's had in a long time. Let's just be honest. But look, Kalen, DeBoer, his staff, they did a fantastic job of picking this team up off the mat. I'm with you. I thought Alabama, you take away those turnovers, they pretty much dominated the game. Listen, to have 4 turnovers and still win by 2 touchdowns, it's pretty amazing. I really gave Auburn maybe a little bit more credit coming into this game after watching that performance they had against Texas A&M. Now I kind of see why they were 5 and 6. And again, I'm not trying to downplay Auburn. Just I was a little surprised at the differences when seeing these two teams close up. Alabama's clearly the better team.
Yeah, and let's talk about what it means. Because, again, it's not like since Coach Bryant passed away, we know this has been a very competitive rivalry. And we know Tuberville put 6 in a row on Alabama, the thumb +1, which is what Alabama's going for next year. But everything that you do in this state for your program, of course, for Alabama, you're trying to win championships. I get that. But as far as Alabama versus Auburn, recruiting, all of the talk during the year, still the result matters the most. And what I mean by that is recruiting classes, a lot of juice in your program, all of that is secondary if you don't win this game. And plus, if you don't win this game, it's very rare that you're going to go on to where you want to go. Certainly, if Alabama had lost this game, they'd be out of the college football playoff discussion. Now, there was a time, 2017, when they lost the Iron Bowl and still won the national championship, but that's an outlier. The game matters. And you can talk all you want about the momentum that you've got and how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that. It comes down to what you do on that Saturday in November or early December, and Alabama once again gets the win. And like I said, that's one for the thumb now. And you go down to Auburn next year with a chance to hang 6 in a row on them. It's a huge victory for Alabama. I don't want to lessen, because Auburn was not a good team or a great team, I don't want to lessen the impact of this game, not just for what it means in the short term, but also what it means for Kalen, DeBoer, and as we said, as we get to the CFP in a moment, what it means for that. This was a huge win for Alabama football.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to is Kalen DeBoer. I mean, a lot of people last week after that performance against Oklahoma were really disappointed. We talked about that and how big of a game this was in his first Iron Bowl. And again, I can't say enough about the job they did having to get these guys off the mat. Gary, it was a tough, monumental task to be able to kind of get them up because there was a lot of things riding in that Oklahoma game. You had a chance to play for an SEC title if you win your last 2 games. You have a chance to sew up a surefire playoff spot, and Alabama folded in Norman. So you kind of thought, how are they going to respond? And again, I can't give enough credit to the way the coaching staff got this team prepared. They played well. And again, you mentioned it. Alabama did turn the ball over 4 times. It was not a perfect performance. But the thing that I really liked, Gary, was the way Alabama gutted it out.
They leaned on, obviously, Milroe, but Jam Miller, career-high 28 carries. I mentioned Bernard with 111 in receiving yards. Ryan Williams had an off game. I mean, he bounced back a little bit in the second half, but it was not a great game for him. But 3 veteran guys came through. Milroe, yeah. Miller, and Bernard. Yeah,
again, I think so. I certainly did. And not only that, Gary, I thought the offensive line played really well. I thought the defensive, as a whole, you mentioned they did give up 399 yards. Now, a lot of that came on that last drive.
80 yards on that last drive of 21 seconds.
So when you look at it, I thought Alabama at the line of scrimmage in this game, the way they stopped Auburn's run was the thing that really got my attention. I was afraid that Auburn was going to have a lot of success with Thorne running the ball, also with, obviously, Jarquez Hunter. But he only had 56 yards. I mean, as a team, they only had 98. I thought Alabama, again, did a fantastic job.
All right, we talked about the turnovers, but let's get to a key play in the game that this might have been a blowout, even after all the turnovers in the first half, 3 of them. Alabama came out in the second half, scored on their first 2 possessions, sandwiched between an Auburn 3 and out. And it's 28-6. Auburn is inside its 10-yard line. You see Simmons drop the swing pass, and there you see Auburn wide receiver Smith blocking Alabama defensive back Smith right into the fence. All right, this led to a little bit of a fracas, a little bit of a, they all got tangled up. The question for me is, how is this not offsetting personal fouls or offsetting unsportsmanlikes? Alabama got 2 unsportsmanlikes. That gave Auburn a first down, pushed the ball out, and they went down and scored a touchdown to kind of get back in the game, at least theoretically.
Yeah, that was a moment when you thought, okay, this could be a potential turning point in the game. Auburn could have certainly gained a lot of momentum there. You talked about how they used it to their opportunity. But I'm with you, Gary. I think that this should have been an offsetting penalty.
Mm-hmm. Lambert Smith, the wide receiver, who had a great game, by the way, he precipitated that. He was the one, and certainly Malachi Moore ran over there. Devontae Smith responded, but it's got to be, in my opinion, unsportsmanlike on both sides. It was only on Alabama. Gave Auburn a little bit of life. That game really might have gotten ugly. If Auburn had to wind up punting from inside their 10, it gets to 35-6, and it is over. But Alabama gets the win, 28-14. And now it's time for Coach Talk. And following the Iron Bowl, Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer, as you might have figured, was asked about the college football playoff and to make the case for the Crimson Tide being one of those 12 teams that plays for a national championship.
When you talk about the schedule and what it is week to week, it's just a grind. And, having to come back every week, that's really the only conference that has to do that is ours. And playing physical football, I think we've continued to excel in that area. We were what the game's all about. So, I think those are 2, pretty big deals.
And Alabama Director of Athletics Greg Byrne kind of spelled it out on social media. Alabama's argument, his main points: strength of schedule. Burr says it's the #1 bullet point on the committee's list of things to consider. Alabama's number 10 in ESPN strength of record, number 17 in strength of schedule, have 3 wins over teams currently ranked in the college football top 25. All that makes Alabama a strong contender for the playoff. And let's make a argument for Alabama right now, Rodney. We really don't have to. The latest college football playoff rankings just came out. Alabama is in at number 11, meaning if it holds up like this, and we have conference championship games coming up, Alabama would be in. They're projected to play at Notre Dame. I think college football fans everywhere would love to see that. Here's a key point on Alabama being ranked ahead of Miami. Alabama's 3-1 versus current members of the AP Top 25. Miami is 0-1. So not only they have not played any current members of the Top 25 other than one, they lost to that team. Again, I know a lot of people don't like it. I get it. But when you look at Alabama, you look at the teams they have beaten. They beat Georgia. That's still a huge win. I know Ole Miss did as well. They beat LSU, blew them out in Baton Rouge. They beat Missouri 34-0, which is kind of getting fluffed over. Missouri's 9-3. I mean, you and I talked about it today. I said I think Alabama's going to be number 11, and they are.
Yeah. No, I think it's big. I mean, that was where they needed to be, Gary. There was a lot of kind of talk, speculation that Miami would be in that spot. Again, you saw them at number 12. There's been a lot of talk about South Carolina. I'm not saying I'm surprised, but it is interesting that they had South Carolina behind Ole Miss. And again, I don't think it's interesting from the standpoint that I think South Carolina is getting jobbed or anything, because look, Ole Miss beat them by 3 touchdowns
in Columbia. Yeah. Hey, listen, again, it's no guarantee Alabama's going to get in, but my prediction on my radio show this morning, and I'll say it right now, is if they take 4 teams from the SEC, and I believe they will, no doubt in my mind now, obviously Alabama will be that 4th team, not South Carolina, not Ole Miss. All right, we can touch on that more with phone calls and emails a little bit later on. Let's get some basketball news, and it's not what we wanted to hear, but we expected it. Nate Oats confirming today what Alabama fans feared. Latrell Wrightsell Jr. will miss the rest of the season with a ruptured Achilles that he suffered in Saturday night's loss to Oregon in the championship of the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas. Wrightsell will have surgery tomorrow, and he is expected to make a full recovery. Because he's played in less than 30% of the schedule, he is eligible for a medical redshirt again, and that would be awesome if he could come back next year. Short term, though, this is a loss, man. He was averaging 11 points a game. He probably was shooting the 3-ball better than anybody on the roster. He's a good defender. He's tough. He's a veteran, experienced, obviously, Roddy. This is 42%, like I said, from 3, 50% from the field. This is a big loss for this team.
It really is, in spite of the fact that they do have a lot of talent. The roster's obviously loaded. I know Youngblood should be back at some
Creighton
point
game
soon.
in 10 days, 11 days he should be back.
Can't be soon enough, and they really need him.
Yeah, I got to go to North Carolina now tomorrow night, and Alabama drops that game, they'll have 3 losses. So they're still trying to figure it out, and this does not help. But our prayers are with Latrell Wrightsell Jr., and hopefully, he'll have a chance to come back and play next year. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, the latest intel you need ahead of early signing day, which is tomorrow. Boy, it's gotten lost, hasn't it? Plus, we are going to talk about Herb Jones, return to Hale County High School, and all of his teammates from the Pelicans came with him, Ronnie. I think that speaks volumes, dude. Zion Williamson, all of them were there today. We will talk about Hale County Herb Jones Day, retiring that jersey, and a little bit later on, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that number is 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882, or you can email us at the address on your screen. Tider Insider TV is coming right back.
It just shows me that, treating people right and working hard, takes you a long way, regardless of how talented you may be. If you don't treat people right or treat people with respect, the talent can only get you so far. So that's what I take away from it,
What an afternoon in Moundville. Hale County High School gym was packed. I mean packed. As the high school retired Herb Jones, number 2. He led the Hale County Wildcats to a Class 4A state championship in 2017, then had a storied career at the University of Alabama, was drafted in the 2nd round by the Pelicans. He now is one of their most valuable members, an all-defensive selection. The team, that's the general manager, David Griffin. The team came up, Rodney.
That's amazing.
Rode a bus up.
Amazing.
Yeah. And just to be there to support Herb, that's the kind of guy he is. I mean, that's big-time stuff right there. And also, Nate Oats obviously was there, as was Ryan Pannone, assistant coach at Alabama, who is a former Pelicans assistant. And there's Nate Oats right there. Great day, great guy. Now he's just got to get healthy. He's been hurt, but special day in Moundville for a special human being. All right, welcome back into TITV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa, alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. We are less than 24 hours away, obviously, from college football signing day for the early period, Rodney. This has changed so much. But tomorrow is a day, and it's a big day still. Alabama trying to put this 2025 class together. They had a lot of recruits at the game for the Iron Bowl on Saturday. Let me just hand this over to you. This is your expertise. 22, 23, I don't know how many they're going to sign. Obviously, you're worried about some guys flipping from you to other schools. You're going to flip some guys from other schools to you. Where does it look heading into National Signing Day?
Well, right now they have 22 committed. Now, one of those is expected to either delay until February. He might sign tomorrow, Ty Haywood, the 5-star offensive tackle out of the state of Texas, out of Denton, Texas. But I don't think it's going to be with Alabama, unfortunately. He'll either sign tomorrow with Michigan, but the thought was that he was going to wait until February so he could take a visit to Michigan first. But apparently that may not be the case.
Yeah, there's some speculation that he might go ahead and sign, but obviously I think Alabama would ask him to wait, and you can sign again in February. I can't speak here. He is a terrific offensive tackle prospect, maybe the best in the country.
Yeah, he's got a lot of tools. I mean, there's a reason he's a 5-star. You see how lean he is. He's got the ability to get bigger. This guy's been committed to Alabama for a long time. We thought he was solid for a while. But, you know, again, Michigan has become a major player with the NIL, and that's going to be a real impact.
Three letters, NIL.
Yep.
And but we'll see if Alabama can make a push and hang on to him. Still, Kalen Russell will headline this class, even if Haywood winds up signing with Michigan. You know, quarterbacks, you got to have them. And, boy, I tell you, Russell's an impressive-looking QB.
Again, from the state of Texas, Duncanville, Gary's led them to back-to-back state championships against some of the best competition in the country. This guy's thrown for nearly 4,000 yards this year. 52 touchdowns, Gary, only 2 interceptions. Again, he plays with a great program. They're on their way to their 3rd state championship there. So the guy's a winner. He's got talent. He's got size. He's got height. This guy's going to get bigger. Really good arm.
Real quickly, we mentioned players flipping from Alabama to other schools. What about Derek Meadows, the wide receiver out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, committed to LSU, but the expectation is he'll sign with Alabama?
Yeah, and again, I thought Derek Meadows back in the summer may pick Alabama originally. He was in my Firecracker 5. We've shown this video before. But now, looks like he's going to flip. Alabama is the favorite right now for Derek Meadows.
Yeah, it's still a lot of fun, but boy, it's not anything like it used to be, National Signing Day. All right, still to come on TITV, our weekly Bama in the NFL update. Find out which former Crimson Tide players showed out in Week 13. A lot of them. More than we can show you. And up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see again the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. We want to hear from you, TITV Nation. Give us a phone call. Phone lines are open. We'll be back after this. All right, Bama in the NFL time. Again, this isn't all of them. No way you can do all of them. But what about Brian Robinson Jr.? Busting out for that touchdown run against the Titans. 40-yard TD was his longest rushing touchdown of his career. He went over 100 yards in Week 13. Commanders took care of the Titans 42-19. Najee Harris, great game for the Steelers as they beat the Bengals in a thriller 44-33. He finished with 82 yards, and this touchdown also caught several balls. Mac Jones came in for the injured Trevor Lawrence after Lawrence took a shot to the head, and he looked like the Mac Jones that we saw at Alabama. First time in a while. He went 20 of 32 for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, the Jaguars end up losing. You've got Jerry Jeudy last night, man. What about Jeudy? 235 yards in reception, 70-yard touchdown. That's the most yards ever for a player against their former team for Jeudy against the Broncos, but the Broncos did win the game. 41-32 was the final. All right, we're going to get out on the hotline and take a phone call from Luke over in Clay County. Luke, is it Lineville, Ashland? Where are you at?
I'm from Ashland.
Okay. All right, Luke, what you got?
Hey, well, Rodney really got my question about Derek Meadows, but I'll ask another one. Is there any players that Alabama is looking to flip tomorrow?
Yeah, okay, obviously we mentioned Derek Meadows, but there's a couple. I think when you look at in the secondary, Alabama's in on a couple of really good players. Mason Dunn out of Tupelo, Mississippi, is a kid that I know a few weeks ago the Ole Miss sources that we have told us that they thought he would flip to Alabama. It didn't happen. I know his team plays for the state championship over in Mississippi Thursday night, so I don't know. I haven't heard anything new on Mason Dunn. He may stick with Ole Miss. We'll see. Another guy to really keep a close eye on. Now, he may not announce until Friday. Donovan Starr, he's a cornerback out of Brentwood, Tennessee. He's committed to Auburn. Watch out for Alabama. Here's a lot of buzz that he may be flipping to Alabama. Now, Vanderbilt's been in there too, but Donovan Starr's a really good-looking player as a corner. He visited here for the Missouri game, came back this past weekend. Again, committed to Auburn. Watch out for Donovan Starr. Possibly on Friday, maybe tomorrow. We'll see.
All right, Luke, thanks for the phone call from over there in Ashland. When we come back, we're going to try to get to some more phone calls. And also, we'll have our email question of the day as Tider Insider TV will continue. The number 205-348-9882. We'll be right back. And welcome back, everybody. Let's go ahead and get to our email question of the day, brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. All right, let's take a look at it, Rod. It is from Alex in Pell City. Are you concerned about in-state recruiting? Good question.
I'm not.
Okay.
And again, this is his first year. I know that Auburn did a really good job, but Alabama evaluates the players. They pursue the ones that they feel like are the ones that fit best for them. I think DeBoer is going to do a really good job recruiting the state of Alabama.
All right, let's get to a phone call. Andre in Birmingham. Hey, Andre.
Hey, thanks for having my call.
Yes, sir.
Hey, let me get this out of the way first. One of my buddies, Keith Weatherspoon, he will not say Roll Tide anymore. I don't know why. But anyway, here's my question. It's about Nate Oats' basketball team, right? So, the refs never give them a break on defense. They always call them fouls on the big men, always got them in foul trouble. And that's almost every game. Why is it that Nate Oats don't go into some type of zone?
Yeah, Andre, it's just not what he does. He has a system, offensively and defensively, and he runs what he runs. And now they have played a little bit of zone since he's been here, but they're just not a zone defensive team. That's just not the principles that they apply. That's the best way that I can answer it. I know at times you may say, well, why don't they go into zone? But that's why he plays a lot of guys. That's why he builds a lot of depth. They play the way they play, Rod. That's just the best way I can answer that. All right, let's try to get Putty in Alabaster real quick. Hey, Putty, you got about a minute.
Hey, Gary, Rodney, hope y'all are doing well. I think Richard Young has sort of an NFL burst, and I was wondering if y'all thought he ought to get some more reps.
I definitely think that Richard Young probably deserves more carries, will get more carries, in the future. Because I think you're right, Putty. I think he's got everything you need to be outstanding.
Thanks for the phone calls and the email. We'll be back to wrap it up and have a little news on Kobe Prentice and the portal before we close it out. Stay with us. All right, a little portal news. First one that we've seen, it's being reported on by media outlets that Kobe Prentice, wide receiver from Alabama, will enter the portal.
Not really a surprise.
Yeah, and there'll be more. That's just what the case it's going to be for every team. But real quick follow-up on Richard Young. We don't know what's going to happen with the running backs either with the portal, but you said it. But I think next year he's going to have a much bigger role, don't you?
I do. I think as long as he continues to work hard, stay healthy, he's a guy that could be a future star here.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 on WVUA 23 or find it anytime online at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you tonight with some video from the 5th grade fast break game. Alabama women's basketball yesterday. All the area 5th graders got to come out and watch it for free. Bama wore out Georgia State 98-49. Look at all these kids having a big time. Alabama's 9-0 on the season. Hey, they're good. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everybody.